Cats. Welcome back to another episode of Chat About Tay. I'm your host, Bella. And in this episode, I'm going to be continuing my Taylor Swift journey through Taylor Swift's career and discography. So the last episode concluded with the Reputation era, and I kind of misspoke slightly when I said that my favorite song was Dancing with Their Hands Tied, because that was my favorite song like at the time that the album was out and at the time that I like went to the tour, and that's why I shared that story of how I was disappointed that she didn't sing that song at the tour. But since then, and kind of even back then, this was my like number 2 favorite song, but my favorite song out of all of the songs on Reputation is actually Getaway Car. And Getaway Car is number 10 on my top 10 favorite songs. And like I mentioned, that is the only song from Reputation that ended up on my top 10 list, but it is my favorite album. So I'm going to get into that more. I'm probably going to do my top 10 favorite songs in next episode. And I just wanted to share that information as a little sneak peek of what next episode's going to be. So moving into the Lover era. So as I said, Reputation's my favorite album. I absolutely loved this album so much. And I was really hoping, and obviously Taylor was as well, that this album was going to do really, really well at the Grammys and everything. And so this album didn't end up getting that many accolades as her other albums. And so people, like a lot of publications said it was one of the best albums of the year, but there were a lot of like critics that just didn't really enjoy it. But, you know, just because critics say that they like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be doing well in, you know, the music industry or among like the awards and everything. So it was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album at the Grammys that year, but several publications said that the lack of nomination for Album of the Year for any other category was actually a snub. So it's just kind of interesting. She did have a lot of, you know, nominations and everything, but it just didn't perform as well as 1989 did. So, you know, she went on and during the Lover era, she does have her documentary, which I'm not going to get into the entirety of that documentary. I could probably do a different episode on that. But during the Lover era, she did release a documentary as well. And in that documentary, she had a lot of behind the scenes of the Reputation era, because that's when it was filmed. And she did say that, you know, she was disappointed that it didn't do really well and that she, you know, was going to go on to make a better album. And I think that's interesting looking back now, because when she did the re-records, she cited one of the reasons why she never re-recorded Reputation, other than the, you know, obviously the songs are emotional and stuff for her, but she said that she didn't think she could even improve upon it, which I just think, you know, her at the time, she probably was like, yeah, I could improve this, I can just redo the album. But, you know, as she's grown, she really realized how much, you know, of an impact this album really had and how it really was perfect. So I thought that was interesting. And so, yeah, so she goes on to release the Lover album, and I was so excited for this era. You know, coming off of Reputation, you know, obviously I was excited for what she was going to do next. And although Reputation is my favorite album, the albums that she has put out since Reputation, you know, are some of my top favorite ones. And so when she was teasing everything, obviously her whole Instagram changed from very dark aesthetic to happy aesthetic. And I think a lot of people were excited about that, but I think a lot of people were also like, well, she just did this whole era of like being dark and moody and now she's all happy and stuff. And so I think people were kind of like thrown off about it a little bit, but I was really, really excited about it. So in April of 2019, Taylor had a little countdown clock that led down to April 26th, and that is when her first song from Lover was released, which was Me. And I was really, really excited, obviously just because I love Taylor, but I was just excited that she was having a new album. And my birthday is April 28th, so the song being released 2 days before my birthday was like, you know, it was a little birthday gift to me. And then she released the music video. I remember I was taking the metro to work and she had released the music video, I think at like midnight that night, and I hadn't stayed up to watch it. So I was watching the Me music video in the subway station while I was waiting for my train. So I was you know, trying not to freak out in the subway station while I was listening to the song. But I really, really enjoyed the song. I know that a lot of people, this is like one of their least favorite songs by Taylor, and I don't really understand why people hate that so much. It's actually number 65 on my list out of, oh my god, how many songs are on this list? Let me check real quick. 253. So it is in the top 100 songs that I like. But yeah, I think people were very like, I don't think they were like taken aback, but like Reputation was such a specific vibe that going from that vibe to this vibe is just a very different shift. And I think from like when we get to Folklore through Life of a Showgirl, I think like the vibes of those albums aren't like, you know, with Folklore and Evermore, that's a sister album. With Midnight's, it is pop, but there is sort of still that sort of like poetic-y lyrics within them. And then Torture Poets Department, and then she released Life of a Showgirl. So I think when the aesthetics and the sentiments of her albums are completely different than the ones previous, I think people get a little like taken aback. But I was really, really excited about that. I really love Panic at the Disco, so I was excited that Brendan Urie was on that song. And I really enjoyed it. I remember that she was performing that song on so many talk shows, and she was actually doing interviews again, because for Reputation, she didn't do any interviews for that album. And I was just really excited for this album to be released. So she, from April to June, that was the only song that was released, was Me. So we had a couple months of this like fantastic song, and it was just so exciting. And then on June 14th, she released You Need to Calm Down, and that is, I absolutely love that song too. And You Need to Calm Down is actually ranked number 32 on my list. So a lot of the Lover songs in 1989 and Reputation, they're all like at the top, probably 100 of my songs. And so I also remember when I watched that video, I was on my lunch break at work, and I went into like a little conference room and I watched the music video. I was like so excited about it. And I just adore that song so much because of, you know, the sentiment of, you know, it being about the LGBT community, and also just being about how you can't let people who are haters or people who are mean to you get you down. And I think it's just like, I just enjoy the sentiment of that song a lot. And it was obviously very important for the community, which I appreciate. That song was really wonderful. I love the music video. This was sort of like this era of Taylor just sort of being, you know, she's more in the public eye. We're really seeing how happy she is. And I do think she was happy during the Reputation era, but I think with that album, you know, she wasn't doing interviews, so we didn't really get to hear from her a whole lot about the songs. So hearing her talk about these songs, having the behind the scenes music videos, and she did have behind the scenes for Reputation as well, but she wasn't doing interviews. And so, you know, she was actually performing these on award shows. I remember when she performed this on the VMAs, and I love that performance. And it was just sort of that, like, and I know I keep saying era because that's like, you know, what we use for Taylor, but this was like this era of her kind of a comeback in a sense of where we really got to hear her talking about these songs. And so I just really enjoyed that. And then in August, she released Lover, and I absolutely adore Lover. I loved that music video. I thought that music video was really beautiful. And I am going to be ranking all of her music videos, actually. But Lover is number 29 on my list. I love all of the versions that she released. She released a version with Shawn Mendes. She had a couple of remixes and stuff. And I think this song is so beautiful. And obviously, this song means something different to her now. And during the Eras tour, she even said she wrote this at a specific time in her life, but the sentiment is still there. So I do appreciate that. And I think it's such a beautiful song. And then after that, the album came out. So those were the 3 songs that were released before the album. The album came out. I remember she did these Target exclusive CDs where you could get like 4 different diaries that she had written. And I bought all of them. I still have them all. I gave 2 of the CDs to one of them to my mom, one of them to my sister, and then I don't know, I think I just ended up with extra CDs, but I still have those little diaries. They were really cool, and they were just like diary entries that she had written throughout her life, and that she published alongside of the album, which I thought was really, really cool. And so when she does release the track lists beforehand, I kind of like to go through them all and see if I can guess like what they're going to be about, or if they're going to be slow or whatever. And the album opening with I Forgot That You Existed, and I honestly, like, people on Tumblr were speculating that was going to be kind of like, oh, I forgot that love existed. And so I was expecting that opening song to kind of just be like really like a love song, and then it wasn't. It was more about like, I forgot you existed, that you were a person, because I'm happy now. And I think coming off of the Reputation era, that was such a great start to the album. And then, you know, all of the other songs on this album are just so fantastic. Paper Rings is amazing. London Boy, The Archer is beautiful. Cruel Summer, that is like seriously one of my favorite songs as well. That is number 9 on my favorite songs. And so I was really loving this, and because it was so different than Reputation, but also it's still Taylor. And the album, I just think, is just it's such an interesting concept album too, because it's all about love, but it's also about like the love people have for her and the love that she's giving other people. And it also includes songs about heartbreak. And Death by a Thousand Cuts is my number 14th favorite song, and that is such a beautiful song. And it was really cool when she was speaking about that song, because she actually said that she got the idea from watching a movie on Netflix, and she was like, can I still write heartbreak songs? And she wrote that because of it. And ironically, that movie was actually written with a Taylor Swift song in mind. So it was kind of like a full circle moment. And the movie that inspired that song is called Someone Great, if you wanted to check it out. I have never seen it before, but if you want to check it out. And I've been saving one of my favorite songs on Lover for last to discuss. My number 8 favorite song, the top song from Lover on my list as well, which is The Man. I was so excited about this music video because the song is fantastic. It was immediately one of my favorite songs. Obviously, it's my top song from Lover, and I just thought that the sentiment is really cool. And she mentioned how she had wanted to write a song like The Man for a very long time, and she just never did. And I have kind of a theory, and this has not ever been said, but this is my theory, because this is the first album that she released not being with Big Machine Records. And I know I glossed over all of that, but I have a feeling that she did not want to write this song about what it would be like if she was a man while she was under the ownership of another man, if that makes sense. So I think it was purposeful that she had sort of waited to release that song. Again, my opinion, my theory. She's never said that before, but that is what I think. Conspiracy theories with Bella. And so yeah, The Man released, the music video released in January of 2020, and I mean, that music video, like, if you haven't seen it before, I'm gonna kind of spoil it for you a little bit. But the music video, it goes through different scenes of this man doing all these things that they're very like, if a woman did the same things, people would be very upset. And then so the whole music video, I'm like, who is this actor? I have a feeling this might be Taylor Swift in drag. And it is Taylor Swift in drag. She called him Tyler Swift. And at first I thought it was her brother, but I was like, it kind of looks like her brother, but it's not really. But yeah, she was playing the man, because if I was a man, she was in the music video as a man. So that is one of my favorite music videos. I'm gonna have to do like a actual ranking of all the music videos, but that one is probably in the top 5 of my favorites. So in general, like, I was just so excited about this album. I think this album was just so wonderful. And I know, again, this album didn't get as many accolades as some of her other albums. And, I think that's okay. I'm obviously not Taylor. I'm not in the music industry, but I think it's okay if you release an album that you're proud of and release songs that you're proud of. And if they don't get recognition, then that's okay, because there are people out there that do love the album and who do appreciate it. So just because you didn't get awards for something doesn't necessarily mean that you did a bad job. So Lover, at the Grammys that year, was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Album. And then the singles You Need to Calm Down and Lover were also nominated for Best Pop Solo Performance. So she didn't win for those awards. That was a year that like Billie Eilish kind of swept the Grammys up. I mean, I think Billie Eilish is a fantastic singer and musician, so I think that makes sense that she won a lot of awards and everything that year. But again, this is 2 albums now that she hasn't won awards for. And again, I just said all of my thoughts on that. And so in January of 2020, she also released the Miss Americana documentary that I was discussing earlier, and that was released on Netflix. I don't want to go into that too much because I could just do a whole episode on that documentary, but she did release that, and it was very much talking about how she was writing Reputation and writing Lover and all that sort of the time period from when like 1989 was released and the whole scandal happened all the way through the release of Lover. And I thought that documentary was really cool. It was like the first time we really got to see like insights of like her, because she does interviews and she's done other sort of behind the scenes things, but this was really like a behind the scenes look at like what she goes through on a daily basis. And I thought it was a really good documentary. And so she also announced that she was going to do the Lover Fest, which that never happened because of COVID. And and she was going to be doing this Lover Fest in a couple of different cities throughout America. And I, at the time, really wanted to go, but the closest one to me was in Massachusetts. And I've been to Massachusetts before. It takes a very long time from like the DC area to get up to Massachusetts. So I wasn't going to be able to go to that concert. So when it got canceled, obviously I was like very upset for her, but I was like, well, nobody can see it now. So it's kind of like a nothing burger at that point. But I did feel bad that she had to cancel it because of COVID. Before we talk about folklore, I do also want to just mention that I had gotten dumped by my then boyfriend, like right around the time that Me was released. And so going into the Lover era, I feared that I would not relate to the songs because obviously this is like a love album and I had just gotten out of a relationship. But obviously I did relate to this album because like I mentioned, that album has the heartbreak song Death by a Thousand Cuts. I related to that. It also had, I Forgot That You Existed, which is, it could be about an ex. It could be about people that have done you wrong. And then she also just had really vulnerable songs like The Archer and things like that. So I do relate to this album, and I've been in a committed relationship for 5 years now. So I do relate to this album a lot more than I did, but it was still an album that was universal in a sense. And that's something that I really love about Taylor's music and that I really admire about her music. So moving into the folklore era, we went into COVID, and obviously COVID was really hard. She had to cancel the tour, and everyone's just inside, everyone's depressed all the time. And so she surprise releases folklore, and I was like out of my freaking mind because she's releasing this album. She had no promotion for it. She just decided to release this out of the blue, and I was so excited because I'm like, finally I have something to do in COVID. And so I actually stayed up till midnight to listen to the songs, and I did record an episode for Chat About That about folklore, and that is still up on all of my platforms if you're interested in listening to it. And yeah, I was so happy about this album getting released. I remember I bought the cardigan. I have the original cardigan merch item that she put out, and this was just so different from a lot of music that she had written before. And obviously she's had more like sad songs and slow songs, but this was sort of more of like an indie kind of vibe, and obviously folk and alternative. So this was very, very different from music that she's written before. And I think a lot of people ended up listening to folklore, and I think the reason why it did so well was, and obviously, I mean, her music is always going to do well, but I think one of the reasons why it did really, really well is because it was released during COVID. And I think a lot of people were, they were in their homes, they were bored. Some people didn't have jobs. I didn't have a job. And so even if you weren't like the biggest Taylor Swift fan, like you had more time on your hands to listen to an entire album and get into something that maybe you weren't into before. So I think she gained a lot of fans during the folklore era. And Rolling Stone named it one of the 500 greatest albums of all time. It won Album of the Year at that Grammys. And so she was the first woman to ever receive Album of the Year 3 times. So that was a really big deal. And I remember when she released the Long Pond Studios session on Disney Plus, I told my boyfriend, this was a different boyfriend. This is the boyfriend that I've been with for a very long time now. I remember when that was released, I told him, I said, we're watching this. We are going to have this on and we are going to watch this. And he was like, okay. So I watched it with him, and he really enjoyed it as well. So yeah, this was just such a different era for her and different kinds of music. And so I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm really enjoying this. The music videos were really cool. And so, like I said, she released the Long Pond Sessions in November. And then she released in December of 2020, Evermore. And again, she was like, here's another album. And we're all like, oh my God, you just keep writing. And that's what she said. She just, after she finished Folklore, she couldn't stop writing, and she released Evermore. And between Folklore and Evermore, I prefer Evermore. That is my 6th favorite album, and Folklore is actually number 11. And I think that's just because I enjoy more of the songs on Evermore, and I like the songs on Folklore too, but there's just more songs on Evermore that I really like. And so I'm kind of like glossing over this whole era a little bit, but I'm going to just sort of combine them because they are sister albums. So on Evermore, my favorite songs on that album are Nobody No Crime, Cowboy Like Me, Ivy. There's just more songs on that album that I like. And so the top song from that album is Cowboy Like Me. That's number 19, so it is in my top 20. Yeah, I just think this album was a little bit more just my style over Folklore, but I do really 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 love Folklore. I do love them. And I know it's like one of my last favorite albums from her discography, but I do enjoy it. And my favorite song on that one is August. That's my number 40, which is, yeah, it took all the way down to the 40th spot to have Folklore show up on the list. But everybody likes different genres and everybody likes different things, and I'm just an Evermore girly over Folklore. There's nothing wrong with that. And obviously this is a stupid thing to say because it was during COVID, but she only had 2 music videos for these albums. She did Cardigan and Willow, which makes sense because we're in COVID. She can't, do everything. But if she was going to go back and do music videos for these songs, I would really love one for Cowboy Like Me, No Body No Crime, and August. I think those 3 music videos would be so cool. But I mean, she's not going to go back and do music videos. But she did that for the re-records, but I don't think she's going to do that for Folklore and Evermore. So yeah, I really enjoyed both of these albums. Like I said, they were so different than other songs that she's had before, and this really just reiterated the fact that she is such an incredible songwriter. I think a lot of people forget about that with her, and I think people who don't really like her or don't listen to her music just sort of see her as like, oh, she writes songs about boys. But that's not what it is. That's like not even scratching the surface of her. She's always been an incredible songwriter. She wrote music for other country artists before she was discovered. And being 14 and 15, writing the songs that she wrote, that is impressive. And she's always been an incredible songwriter. And I think another reason why people enjoyed these albums was because the songs are just so, like, they're poetic, they're poetry. And that doesn't discredit or diminish any of her other music. Like I said, Blank Space and Shake It Off are my top 2 songs. And are those songs poetic or really like deep? No, but they're not non-poetic or deep at the same time. You know what I mean? So I think these albums, just maybe these appealed to more people because they were more poetic and it wasn't just straight pop music, because a lot of people don't like pop music. It's not really a lot of people's jams. But I think that's kind of why these albums did really, really well. A lot of people were getting into her music a lot more. So then moving off of Folklore and Evermore, she released in April of 2021 the first re-recorded album, which is Fearless Taylor's version. And I'm not going to really go into the re-records very much because I am going to do a whole episode just about the vault tracks, and I do have the vault tracks all ranked as well, so we're gonna do that in an episode. But she does go on and release Fearless Taylor's version, which I was really excited about because this was in that era of I'm taking back my music, and I was excited for Fearless. I think it makes sense why she released that first. That was her first #1 album. And then Red Taylor's version, which is my favorite of the re-records because it has the most vault tracks that I liked. Like, those are all my like top songs, are mostly the ones from Red Taylor's version. And obviously the All Too Well 10-minute version short film was so good. I watched that with my mom and my sister the day it was released, and I was bawling my eyes out because, again, this album was released after, I had gone through my first real heartbreak. And even though I was already 2 years into a wonderful relationship and it's been 5 years now, I still, related to the song, and it brought back a lot of like emotions and stuff. So I think that's why that song was really like hitting home for me more. And that music video is so fantastic. I am going to do an episode about that as well. But I just really, really, really loved Red Taylor's version. That's just my favorite of the re-records that she did. So that was released in 2021. And it wasn't until August of 2022 that she announced on the VMAs that she was going to be releasing a new album in October called Midnights. And again, this is like the 3rd time that she's just surprising us with an album. We were not expecting for her to announce that when she was accepting her award. And so everybody was like, oh my God, like another album is coming out. Only a couple months after she had released Red Taylor's version. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. We have more like music from her. And I actually did an episode on Chat About That about Midnights, and it was my initial reactions and what I thought about the album. So if you are interested in hearing that as well, going into more detail you can still listen to those episodes on all my platforms. But I was really, really looking forward to this because, she had just done these two really folky albums, and we weren't really sure like what the vibe of this was going to be. And for the teasing of the album, she actually did this little series on her TikTok called Midnight's Mayhem with me. And it was like a 13 episode series that she did where she had like a lottery ball cage and she would pull a ball out and whatever number that was a track title that she would say. And so that was fun to like check on her TikTok and see what she was going to say about all those different songs. And she gave like a little bit of like a backstory or kind of like a little tease of like what the song was going to be about. So that was just really fun, and I like that she did that. I thought that was just a cool, clever way to sort of introduce us to like what the songs were going to be about. And none of the songs from Midnights were released prior to the album, but the first like single and the lead single was Antihero. And I think the reason why this is number 4 on my favorite albums list is because of the concept of the album. And it was all about things that kept her up in the middle of the night. And I think that a lot of these songs were things from like all throughout her life. Some people speculate that this was all just recent things because this was around the time where her relationship with Joe was ending and everything. But I think there are some songs on there that were, things that from her past that had kept her up at night and everything. And I thought that was a really interesting concept. And it is kind of a behind the scenes look at what was going on in her life, these things that were keeping her up in the middle of the night. And so Antihero, I love that music video. I love that song. I think that might have been my top listened to song on Spotify that year. And then she did the Lavender Haze music video. Bejeweled, she did a music video for that one. And she also did a music video for Karma featuring Ice Space. Out of all of those music videos, the Bejeweled one is my favorite. I think that is just, it's a cool, like, I don't know. I just like the concept of it. And I like that she had the Haim sisters. I like that she had Laura Dern and Jack Antonoff and Pat McGrath. I just thought it was really cool. Karma is number 12 on my favorite songs, and Bejeweled is number 13. And those are the top ones from Midnights that made it to my list. And then Antihero is number 18. So 3 of them are in the top 20. This was pre-Eras tour. And, I was so excited because at the time, I thought that this was indicating that she was going to do a Midnights tour. And I was really excited, really looking forward to that. And obviously that didn't happen. She announced that she was going to do the Eras tour. And we all know the absolute shit show that was the Eras tour ticketing disaster. I have mentioned many times on Chat About That and on Chat About Tay that I did not get to go to the Eras tour. So I don't have any stories or really anything to contribute to the conversation in regards to the Eras tour because I didn't get to go to it. I'm still mad about it. I will be mad about it for the rest of my life, but it is what it is. I had seen her 6 times in concert previously. So I kind of did go to the Eras tour in a sense because I had seen all of her other tours, but obviously I wanted to hear her sing songs from Lover, from Folklore, Evermore, Midnights. So I didn't get to experience that, but in hindsight, I have heard her sing the majority of the songs from the Eras tour. So, whatever. I'm still mad about it. But yeah, I don't have anything to contribute to that. But yeah, this was the Eras tour era. Everybody was excited about the tour, and I remember watching like the live streams on TikTok, and some people I know went to the tour, so I got to hear stories from them. So yeah, the Eras tour started, and in July of 2023, she released Speak Now, Taylor's version, and I really love the vault tracks on Speak Now, Taylor's version. With the vault tracks, Electric Touch and I Can See You are in my top 5 of the favorite songs. So I did really enjoy Speak Now, Taylor's version. And in October of 2023, she had the Eras tour movie in theaters, and I did go the opening day. I dressed up because, again, I couldn't go to the tour. So I dressed up. I bought the popcorn buckets and the cups and all the other merch. And I was really, really happy that she was able to release that movie for everyone because not only, was she able to capitalize on the tour, but she was able to, bring the tour to all these people that were not able to go see it. And I thought that that was a really, really cool thing that she did because she easily could have just released it on streaming services, which she did afterwards. It is on Disney Plus. But I think the fact that she put it in the theaters and was giving everybody sort of this opportunity to sort of go to their own Eras tour, I thought that was a really wonderful thing that she did for everybody. So I'm really grateful that she did that. And later in October, she released 1989, Taylor's version. It was released right before Halloween. And 1989 is my number 2 favorite favorite album. So I was very, very excited for 1989 Taylor's version. Although I have to say, I think out of all of the re-records, this one was my least favorite, not because of the vault tracks, just because this was the newest of her albums that she had released. And so the cool thing, at least in my mind, with the re-records was hearing how different her vocals were and how much her vocals have improved. Because when you listen to Fearless, Speak Now, and Red, I think the vocals on those re-records are such an improvement from the originals. And I don't think she was a bad singer or anything. I just, over the years, she has improved in her vocals. And so I think with 1989, it is so similar. Like, she can't even tell the difference between the two. She was on like a radio show recently and they were playing both versions of Shake It Off. She couldn't even tell. I can't even tell when they come on my playlists. So I think it wasn't the fact that I didn't like 1989 Taylor's version. It was just because the other ones were such an improvement in the vocals that I think this one was like, oh, it's just out. We can stream it without feeling bad now. So that's why it was like the quote unquote least favorite, but I still like it, if that makes sense. And I do really like the vault tracks on this album as well. Now That We Don't Talk is number 5 of my favorite of vault tracks. So again, I don't dislike this. I just think because of the vocals being so similar to the original, it wasn't like anything different from the original album. So I was very excited about it. Do love it. Have obviously the songs on my playlists and everything. It just didn't wow me because there wasn't that much of a difference between the original, which isn't a bad thing. I think that was the point. And so from October of 2023 all the way to April of 2024, we didn't have any new music. In the meantime, she had won Best Pop Vocal Album and Album of the Year for Midnights. Again, she's winning so many Grammys. I think she is the most awarded female artist for Album of the Year. And obviously that album was so fantastic. But between those times, we didn't have any new music. She announced Tortured Poets Department in February of 2024. And, you know, I knew going into this album that this was going to be obviously very different than Midnights and some of her other albums, because you can't have an album called Tortured Poets Department and not have it be, you know, deep. So I did stay up until midnight to listen to the album. And then she also released the anthology as well, shortly after the main album was released. And I do like these albums. But when it comes to my ranking of her albums, Tortured Poets Department is number 10 and the anthology is number 12 on my favorites. And I think those are rated so low in the Taylor albums just because there aren't as many songs on those albums that I listen to on a daily basis. And I think that when it comes to albums and songs, it's like I said, it's the whole package, it's the whole vibe. And so because the majority of the songs from both of those albums I don't really have in my daily like rotation or my main playlists that I listen to, that's why they're ranked lower. And that doesn't mean that these albums are bad or I think that they're bad, because I do enjoy them. I think these are the best written songs that she's ever done. They are so beautifully poetic and I completely understood like what she was doing with these albums. But because they're not really on my normal rotation, there's some of the songs are, but the majority of them aren't. That's why these albums are ranked so low, but I don't dislike them, if that makes sense. So the only song from either of these albums that is in my top 20 is Guilty as Sin. That is my number 14 favorite song. And then do we have anything else? So High School is number 49. So there's only 2 songs from the Tortured Poets Department, both albums in my top 50. So that is telling. But I also really like, you know, upbeat songs with really good beats. So I think that's why my favorite albums are Reputation, 1989, and Life of a Showgirl, because they're by Max Martin and Shellback. And I just really like the way that they do their production of their songs. And they're also Swedish. Well, Shellback is Swedish and ABBA is one of my favorite bands and ABBA is Swedish. So I think I just prefer like the way that the Swedish do their producing. I don't know. There's obviously something to it. But like I said, I don't dislike these albums. They're just ranked lower because of them not really being on my daily rotation, and that's fine. So I know that I kind of quickly went through Folklore through Tortured Poets Department, but that's just because with the other albums, I did go to the tours, so I have a little bit more to talk about with those albums. But we are now moving into the Life of a Showgirl era, and the first episode of Chat About Tay was me reacting to the album. Like I've mentioned before, that is my number 3 favorite album of all time for Taylor, and you can listen to my initial thoughts on the album and what I thought about the Life of a Showgirl movie and my in-depth analysis of the Easter eggs and the Fate of Ophelia music video. Those are all my previous episodes on Chat About Tay. But to close out with my Taylor Swift journey, I want to say that I think Taylor has really influenced my life in many ways. Like I mentioned in my last episode, she was very influential in me wanting to learn guitar and taking singing lessons and doing theater and choir and all those things. And, the reason that I really am so into music is because of her. And obviously, she's also just had a very big impact on my life in general because she's always like been there for me, in a sense, because, things change and friendships come and go, and you move from different jobs, and you're in school and college, and then you're not anymore, and things have changed a lot throughout my life and then throughout a lot of people's lives, but she's always been there. So she's just sort of like this constant thing that's been in my life. So to close out the episode, I want to give my album ranking. So I've already kind of mentioned a few of the albums where they stand, but my official ranking are, starting with the top going to the bottom: Reputation, 1989, The Life of a Showgirl, Midnights, Lover, Evermore, Red, Fearless, Speak Now, The Tortured Poets Department, Folklore, The Tortured Poets Department Anthology, and Taylor Swift. So those are my rankings. I am going to be doing an episode discussing my top 10 or top 20 favorite Taylor Swift songs. I'm also going to be doing one where I rank the vault songs, and then I'm also going to be doing one that I rank her music videos. So I'm not sure which one I'm going to be doing next, but those are the upcoming episodes that we have. So that's it for this episode. I hope you learned a little bit more about the Lover through Life of a Showgirl eras, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing me talk about my journey with Taylor Swift. Again, this was the episode that I kind of wanted to start this podcast with, and so I'm really glad that I was able to do this, and I just, again, I hope you really enjoyed this. So as always, stay safe, stay classy, and I'll chat again with you soon. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find us on Spotify, Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. See you there.